Folks, today is Thursday, June 4th, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Testimony begin today in the state of Texas versus Karmelo Anthony trial in Collin County, Texas. 18 jurors, all white, heard from a video analyst and track coaches. Legal analyst Thelma Anderson was there today, and she'll fill us in on the proceedings. New York Democrats are advancing redistricting measures that could reshape congressional maps and potentially add seats by 2028. A Metro Atlanta district attorney has filed a lawsuit challenging House Bill 369, a new law that mandates key local races to be nonpartisan, which she claims is unconstitutional. Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett calls out the Supreme Court as racist, immoral, and lacking ethics. No lies told. And a white UFC fighter has spoken out against the cage fighting event that will take place at the White House, accusing the government of desecrating its own role. Oh, yeah. And then wait till you see how, again, they've destroyed the south lawn of the White House. In tonight's Black Star Network, first of all, in tonight's Black Star Network Marketplace segment, a hair care line designated specifically for black hair textures. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Well, folks, not a single black juror was chosen in the Karmelo Anthony trial. 12 jurors, 6 alternates, all white, 11 women, 7 men, began hearing testimony in the first-degree murder trial, where Karmelo, a black teen, is facing life in prison for killing a white teen in conservative Collin County, Texas, at a track meet. His lawyer, Mike Howard, objected to the dismissal of the last 3 potential jurors on Wednesday, claiming the dismissals were racially motivated. However, prosecutors argue that their decisions were based not on race, but on the fact that all 3 jurors were teachers. Legal analyst Thelma Anderson is following the case, joins us now from Dallas. Thelma, I don't understand that logic. What, you don't want teachers on a jury?
That's not a disqualifying factor in order to exclude individuals from being potentially one of the jurors. So that to me I was very perplexed about that, being that these prosecutors are so seasoned, seasoned like 30, 40 years experience, that they would have the audacity to use that lame ass excuse as to why they decided to use their strike to keep them off. Yeah, it's giving Batson, and it's giving Karmelo's lawyer was right to get that on the record if and when they have to appeal, if it comes to that point.
Yeah, these are the things that we see in these cases all the time, and but it just jumps out here. Now, what took place today? Today
was the start of the state's case in chief. So what they have allowed, the rules for the courtroom rules, which to me is discriminating on the public from being able to have public access to a public trial, which is our right. So they have designated only 24 individuals of the public to have the ability to come in and view this trial. The state, the family of the deceased has 15 individuals that they can invite. The defense has 15, and then you have nine different companies that are considered legacy media and that is local that were allowed in to the courtroom. And I could tell you, it was very packed. I was there early, and it was long. The lines was long. The people were there, but they did not allow a holdover room which is customary that a case of this magnitude and the fact that they have shut down the courthouse, they should have afforded a holdover room so the public can still have access, because limiting it to 24 people, yeah, Judge, that conservative way that you're going, yeah, we need you to rethink that.
When you say a holdover room, is that a room that additional people can watch the trial and there's a video feed in that room?
Yes, it will be a video feed, just like in federal court, because federal court doesn't allow streaming. So that's the best example, is the federal court will allow for individuals to be in a holdover to where they can stream in. And that's exactly what this judge should have allowed, because when I was a prosecutor during the Amber Geiger case, we had a holdover for the public to still have the ability to come in and view in person. And that was a big case.
And so that is not the case here. All right. So tell us, we got this video. There was a gentleman who was actually in the trial, and he said that today there was what type of testimony took place today?
So today they had the forensic specialist or expert that specialized in video. And I'm assuming it's the video that is the surveillance that shows the encounter, what happened, what transpired, who, what, when, where, how, why. So that's one of the witnesses that they had outside of doing their opening statements, which the public, we didn't get access to, which I want to hear the opening statement, because that will set the tone with what the state actually have. But they did have that particular expert for today. So
this video here, a gentleman, I take it he was in the courtroom and he actually described what took place.
Yes, so the video is from, No,
we're not going to play it yet. Go ahead and explain it, and then I'm tossed to it. Y'all just hold on.
Okay. So the video is, there is another independent media, Smash the Topic, who's local in Dallas. He was there interviewing individuals, and he interviewed this individual who was inside of the courtroom, listening to testimony and being able to see evidence. And he gave an account of what he saw, and it was a very thorough account. And I'm gonna just say this: I believe that's the reason why this judge don't want us to be in their courtroom, because of what evidence that he has saw that would render the public opinion.
All right, so let's roll this video.
You seen the video, John, 2 hours. Was it clear enough, or was it fuzzy, or what?
No, it was clear. It was clear enough to where you can see the actual individual raindrops come by the cameras.
Okay.
That's how clear it is. You actually see them walking up. You see that Karmelo is already up under there. He's under there minding his business.
Dodging the rain, or?
Yeah, it was still raining. You know,
right.
I'm from Little Rock. So that day we were under a tornado watch.
Right.
And we were under thunderstorm warning, and we know we had already had some light rain then, and it started raining again. Then it was over with for the day.
Okay.
So that's kind of what happened on that day. But they were at a rain delay already. And so during that time when that happened, the twins, their 2 buddies, and a few other kids, because there was a few kids involved with them, they were all coming from the direction of the middle school, coming walking back up.
Right.
On the video, you can see those 4 that actually was involved, and maybe about 3 or 4 others that was with them, skipping up, trying to catch up behind. One veered off probably toward his way to go to the coach and kind of distract him a little bit. And then the other 4 came walking together. One went in front of them, went past.
Right.
The other 4 went and they surrounded Karmelo. You know, if you're Karmelo.
And they showed that on that video.
It's on the video.
Okay, come on.
You can see them walk.
I'm gonna say little stuff.
I'll put it this way.
Okay.
They actually tell you when you're watching the video pay attention to this corner right here, because if you look anywhere else, you might miss different things.
Okay.
So watch those 4. Here, there are 4 right there coming up.
Right.
That's exactly what they say.
Okay.
And so you have no way to be confused that it's those 4.
Okay.
So they come up, they surround them, and it's immediate moment of not even a few seconds of pause. Then that's when they jump. And so
they actually did jump him.
Yeah, it wasn't just no touch. It wasn't just all that moment. Yeah, it was a push. It was all kind of things. But Austin pushed, Hunter hit, and then everybody swung. But at the same time,
So it's more than the twins that got some licks
all
on
4.
them. So it showed that in the video.
Yes, in the video. So again, you got Hunter and Austin standing in the middle.
Okay.
And you have the light bright boy here, and you have the darker boy here.
Okay.
I think that's what I remember. So I have to go back and think about it. But that's where they were. One was going up and down while they were talking and kind of pushing or whatever he was doing. Austin and Hunter was in front. So where they're talking about grabbing bags, Hunter actually said that I grabbed his bag.
Right.
And then later on, he said that Austin threw the bag.
Okay.
Jeff also said the same thing. And so that's them both antagonizing. And we know under Texas law, I just have the fear that you're about to do something to me and you can get up out of here. Yeah, so you don't have to touch me. But at that point, he still stood there and stopped there. And whatever they say alleged was said, you don't know that until they get into it here. But once they did that, they started hitting him. Karmelo actually was able to back out and try to get away. So he was actually trying to get away the first time. Austin grabbed him, and you could see his hoodie coming out like this, and they brought him back in.
Okay.
And when they brought him back in, that's when you could see Austin put him in a headlock. You could see that all the rest of them are still hitting. That must be when the poke happened, because he was able to get out again. He backed out. He looked to the right. That's where the other little kid was filming, because they got some cell phone footage too. But that's where he was filming. He looked directly at him in his camera, and then he went this way to the left. He went down, he fell, and that's when they realized he was gone, because they were still punching. And when he fell, that's when they all turned around. They started chasing him. Austin tried to go chase him too, but he grabbed his chest. I guess he realized that something happened to him, and that's when he went down a little bit and he fell down. But all 3 of them were chasing. But Karmelo was so fast, he got away and went around to the coach. And so you can see them on the video pointing toward Karmelo and the coach. And I can imagine, because Karmelo's out of the camera on that moment, that he was telling the coach what happened. And then that's when Hunter said he whipped his head around. That's a true statement. He just wasn't sitting when he did it. He whipped his head around, you see him on the video, and that's when he walked over to where Austin was, but he never touched him. So all that stuff about him rendering aid and holding his heart, and he never did that, because the coach grabbed him and he was holding him. So at the end of the day, that's kind of where the moment went. But they did assault him. And we'll just play the game. Even if it was just a push, you still assaulted him, because it was unwanted. By your own definition and your word of him saying that, leave me alone, and I'm not going, you assaulted him, period. But they did beat him. And if you look at not the photo that Fox 4 put out, because that was one that they actually edited. I have the emails to prove it. But the actual Collin County one, you can see the webs and stuff on his eye. You can see the bridge of his nose is swollen. You can see the webs under his neck. And so that's the reason why they edited the one from Fox and kind of airbrushed it. And you can see they put the locks of his hair that got taken out as well.
All right, then. And again, the problem that we have here, Thelma, is that the inability for the public to actually see any of this to ascertain from our own perspective. So trial continues tomorrow.
Yes, the trial continues tomorrow. I don't know who's going to be the witnesses tomorrow, but it does continue. And Roland, this does not sit right with me that we do not have our rights to view this trial is also being one-sided on a individual like Karmelo Anthony, who should be able to have a fair trial, and the people to see, because they have crucified this young man for over a year. And you're telling me we now have a individual who has viewed this video, and y'all have led this public to believe that Karmelo Anthony committed murder when he was defending himself from an attack of 4 individuals, 4 versus 1.
Well,
that to me, that bothers me.
Yep, and we will certainly see what happens next in this trial. Thelma, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. My panel, Dr. Greg Carr, Department of African American Studies, Howard University. Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM Radio. Dr. Larry J. Walker, Associate Professor, University of Central Florida. He's in Orlando. This is the thing right here, Larry, I'll start with you. I am a firm believer in cameras in the courtroom. We have the technology. I believe it should be on the federal level. It should be on the state level as well. You have some judges who say, "Oh, they don't want people sitting here, playing up to the cameras and things along those lines." But I absolutely believe that it is important. It is critically important to be able to ascertain what's happening in these cases, and having cameras in the courtroom allows for the public to see what's going on.
Yeah, Roland, this is you hit it on spot on the nose. I mean, the public should realize that there's been a lot of propaganda as it relates to this particular trial. Every article you read suggests this young brother was the aggressor, or it doesn't. The way they shape it in print or in television is not what we just heard. It's a complete opposite of every story I've heard over the last several months. And so the public has a right to make sure to hear this testimony. Obviously, this is the first day, but all these interviews and individuals who are going to go before the court and testify about what happened, the public has a right to hear that. And Roland, let me add about this issue relating to the no black jurors. Texas has the highest number of black people in the nation, not the highest percentage, highest number. The fact that there are no black jurors in here is it's not a jury of his peers. So this is inconsistent when we talk about democratic principles. But this is, once again, we as black folks, particularly as a father of a black son, when I hear stories like this, it is like we're right back in Jim Crow. So I'm fascinated to see how this story, how it continues to play out.
Reese.
Well, yeah, they don't want Karmelo Anthony to be humanized. They want him to be portrayed as a savage, and it's easier to do that when you don't have witnesses. And they know that they got their first win with getting an all-white jury, and then now you have fewer people to bear witness to this. And we know that when black people describe what they see, black people are not believed on a broader scale. It has to be, everybody has to see it with their own eyes. And even when that happens, it's what happened before the tape, well, what happened after the tape. And so, yeah, this is definitely a war of propaganda and not a war of truth and justice.
And of course, when the judge issues a gag order, the folks involved cannot come out and speak to the public. Greg?
Yeah, it sounds like the hillbilly horde. There he is, hillbilly in charge, Judge John Roach, appropriately named. You can't make this up. Satire is dead in the United States of America. But yeah, when we heard Thelma say that it's giving Batson, of course, she's referring to the 1986 case Batson versus Kentucky, which established that you can't use race to eliminate jurors in what's called peremptory challenges. You get to have a certain number of challenges for call, or not for calls. You get to a certain number that you can just get dismissed because you say, I want number 12, 14, 15. You don't have to give any reason. However, in voir dire and jury selection, if you're getting rid of people for cause, the defense lawyer can say, wait a minute, you did that for a racial reason. Now, the judge at that point, Judge Roach, could say, I don't think that it rises to the level of a racial charge. But if the judge says, well, I think that that's possible, then the prosecutor has to say that the prosecutor has said, well, there's a neutral reason that we got rid of them. And then the defense attorney has to say, yeah, I don't believe that. That's a pretext. So when you said that they said they got rid of them because they were teachers, that kind of tracks. My law students, for example, I know as someone with a law degree, it's harder for one of us, it'd be harder for any of the four of us to get on a jury because they typically don't want people like us with degrees or to be on juries necessarily because they think that that will sway the opinion of the other jurors. Now, of course, it's Texas, white nationalist, white psychopath Texas. So they're probably consistently stupid people on that jury. Yes, I am disparaging the jury because they're setting up a legal lynching. Finally, when Thelma said it's giving Batson, by Karmelo's attorney objecting to this, he's preserving the issue for appeal. And so we'll see how that plays out in terms of jury selection. But let's be crystal clear. It sounds like they're trying to set this up to put this in the best possible position for these white folk to try to do Karmelo Anthony in.
Well, that's what prosecutors absolutely do. All right, got to go to a break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about gerrymandering and how New York Democrats are now finally getting in the game. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
Hey everybody, I'm TD Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
New York Democrats have jumped into the national battle when it comes to gerrymandering. They approved on Wednesday a ballot measure to make it easier for Democrats to redraw the state's congressional lines. This move puts New York a step closer to creating a more favorable House map ahead of the 2028 election. New York lawmakers passed a state constitutional amendment that keeps the state's independent redistricting commission in place while revisiting the map drawing process to give state lawmakers more influence in redrawing congressional lines. The state currently requires the Independent Redistricting Commission to submit a House map for consideration, subject to the state legislature's approval. If the map is not approved, the commission must redraw it for lawmakers to consider. Legislators must pass the amendment again next year before going to voters for final approval. If the amendment clears these hurdles, New York lawmakers could draw a new map with as many as 4 new Democratic-leaning seats ahead of the 2028 elections. Now, in many ways, this sounds very similar to what Virginia did, and where a judge, of course, where the Virginia Supreme Court ruled they did not follow the process there. One of the reasons we are at this point, Reese, is because 6-7 years ago, Democrats talked about being fair. Democrats talked about how, so let's have these independent redistricting commissions. Republicans were like, nah, we're good. We ain't doing that. And even if you look at Florida, where you have a law there, Reese, they're like, yeah, we're going to ignore that. And so we've seen this in other places. And so Ohio, where Republicans said, yeah, we don't give a damn what this commission says. And so this is the example where Republicans are like, we're going to play to win. It's about power, pure and simple.
Yeah, Republicans play for power and Democrats play for popularity. They want to be liked and they want everybody to think that they're above board. And nobody's going to think that anyway. If you look at the ratings for both parties, they've been in the shitter for a very long time. The only difference is that Republicans don't have to like Republicans to vote for them. They don't have to like any party to vote for them. And Democrats act like this is an episode of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, or it's looking for a prom date or some shit. And so they want to be wooed and they want all these things in order to get their ass out and vote. And so, yeah, Democrats do not play for keeps. They do not play the long game. We are now a year and a half into Donald Trump's administration, and we don't have a Project 2026 or Project 2027, 28, 32, none of that shit. We don't even have a project next 90 days. Democrats are fucking winging it all across the country. They're getting lucky in some cases, and other cases not so much. And so until Democrats wake up to the reality that this isn't about being on the straight and narrow, especially because voters will never think that you're on the straight and narrow. This is about who has more conviction in using the power to advance the priorities and policies that they want. And unfortunately, the people that care more about advancing their priorities, the people who care more about power than about whatever arbitrary rules and norms, are the ones who have the most insidious, fucked up agenda. And they're getting that agenda through with very little pushback. And that is going to be the status quo until they get voted out.
Absolutely. You know, the thing here, I look at Maryland, Greg, where finally the Democratic president of the Senate woke the hell up and realized, yeah, we might want to get in this game that what took place in Virginia. And I'm sitting here going, fool, you didn't see what was going on all around the country? Did you not see this here? And part of the reason New York is actually in the problem, Greg, is because they've had Democratic governors who cut deals with Republicans in the state legislature for them to appoint right-wing conservative members of the Supreme Court so we can have balance. And then what begins to happen? So what happened was when Hochul was there, what happened was they overruled, the Supreme Court overruled the congressional maps there in New York. Hochul opted not to appeal that decision. That's why New York was totally screwed up, where you saw some of these Republicans win there. And so, again, this is where it's straight up, when you're in a war, you're in a war. And Democrats, whether it's in New York State or in Colorado, where you got that punk-ass governor there, need to understand, hey, if you gotta change the rules because the other side don't believe in the rules, that's what you gotta do.
It's true, Roland. Yeah, I agree with you, Reese. The Democrats would have to do something very different. I don't expect that they will, because for very different reasons, I think. Some are soft white nationalists. Some actually believe in the fantasy that the United States of America is a democracy and that somehow there's a concept of balance that may prevail. And some are just stupid. You know, Jamel Bowie had an excellent piece in the New York Times, the op-ed today page, America broke something when it gave Trump a second chance, and he uses Abraham Lincoln as the example. And what Brother Bowie says is that, you know, on the question of slavery, when Lincoln was being confronted with it, he said, you know, you can't mend eggs once they're broken. These eggs have been broken. South Carolina seceded, and the rest is there. What Bowie says is we're at a moment now where we're not going back to the period before Donald Trump. Project 2025 made sure of that, and I embrace these Europeans. The nasty piece of work, Russell Vogt, Kevin Roberts, all of them. They are white nationalists. They are dying globally and here in the United States, and this is their death knell. We are in the middle of a civil war. It's not a cold civil war anymore. It's a hot civil war. And on the question of redistricting, what this is revealing that this has never been a nation. People should not call it a nation. A nation has a common culture, a common language, it has common memory. This is a state with a lot of different nations in it. And in the federalist model, the states are now at war. And I don't expect that this will go back to what it was before Trump was elected. And I think increasingly there's going to be war. As you said, in Florida, they just simply threw the Constitution away. They don't give a damn. Ohio, similarly with their redistricting committee. Finally, the Democrats are getting the message. And now we have to look to those who use the D to win elections, but who are not, in fact, soft white nationalists, stupid, or believing in the mythology of America, to occupy that D and push them way past this lukewarm Project 2029 they've begun to draft, as if somehow this is 2019 or 2015 and not 2026. It's time now to rethink the whole concept.
One of the things that I am consistently saying, Larry, in various chat groups and others, is that when you're in a war, what is required in a war are for generals to get together, lay out a war plan. What is going to be the strategy in order for us to win this war? As the war is taking place, sometimes you have to reassess strategy. You have to change up tactics. And you have to also look at this thing in a 360-degree view. What you have to do is you have to step back and you have to say, not just, well, if we attack on this front. In a war, you attack on multiple fronts. This war that we are in right now, there is a legal front. Then you have the political front. Then you have the grassroots front. I mean, it's not a question of let's stand back and watch the lawyers do what they do. No, they need folk on the ground doing theirs. I'm in this chat right now, and we're talking about, someone was asking, how do we deal with this? How do we confront what's going on? And one of the things that I said, and this is why I said we have to go old school to be new school. We have to understand that in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Dorothy Cotton was over the citizenship education program. You couldn't join SCLC unless you went through her program, where teaching was taking place. Reverend Jim Lawson said they spent 6 months discussing why they wanted a Nashville movement. Then they spent 6 months discussing what they were going to do. One of my greatest criticisms today, Larry, is that we will have a meeting, and by the end of the 2-hour meeting, or the virtual discussion on Zooms or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, by the end of that, man, we've already created an Instagram account, a website, saying we're going to open a bank account tomorrow. And you often are sitting here going, can somebody explain to me who we are speaking for in this newly formed group that we're trying to launch? And that's sort of how I look at where we are right now. For me, my brain, how I am seeing this, I'm seeing this war that we are in a way by saying, okay, y'all politicians, yeah, New York State, y'all go do what y'all do. What needs to be happening in Maryland, pressure should have been applied, not just from Governor Wes Moore, not just from black lawmakers, but external pressure should have been applied on that Maryland Senate to get it done then. Not wait, pressure. It's very interesting to me, and Reese can speak to this after I let Larry speak. When I look at these folk out here, it's very interesting that the coverage that we're doing, we're calling people, Larry. We're not being bombarded with people who are trying to get on with their ideas. And so I sit here and I examine this whole thing, and I'm going, okay, where are the generals and their plans in this, and why are they not effectively using black-owned and black-targeted media to actually do this? Oh, that's because still too many of them are fixated on going on MS Now and CNN. This is a war, and folk had better recognize when you're in a war, Larry, you have to have a warlike mentality.
Roland, to your point, when you have a war like this, you got to be ruthless. It reminds me of when you were a kid and, you were taught to color inside the lines. That's the Democratic Party. And the kid who decided to color outside the lines is the Republican Party. And so the Democrats have to learn how to color outside the lines. And as you highlighted, we have to train, strategize, educate people in terms of what is at stake. Because a lot of times, we're on this platform discussing these issues. We're actively involved. But there are a lot of black folks that I talk to that don't think they understand what's going on, but don't have enough information and don't know where to go. And in an age like today where you have so many social media platforms, it is a lot easier to organize people. And so there are lessons learned we can learn from the past in terms of the civil rights movement. You mentioned, we from the NAACP and various other organizations about SCLC, about how do you really organize and galvanize people with utilizing strategy with a mission and a statement that people can believe in and you can move forward. Because without that, we're like pieces of a puzzle that you can't seem to kind of put together and figure out how everything matches together. The other point is I want to go to something we've kind of touched on as it relates to the contract with America. I want to remind people that this concept of the contract with, Project 2025, is not new, and that during the Gingrich Revolution had the contract with America. And so that is the precursor to this, Project 2025. The Republicans have been doing this for decades. Where have the Democrats been? Beyond time to catch up because we've lost so much time. We've lost on the policy issues. We've lost as it relates to federal judgeships in terms of these decisions. It is time to strategize. We need the proper people in place to make sure we educate. We have the proper mission so that we can come together as pieces of a puzzle and we're not fragmented anymore.
I'm going to come back to that particular point in terms of as it relates to a Democratic plan and a Republican plan. But I want to go back to when I'm talking about this media plan. And so what I'm talking about here, Reese, is if folks are mobilizing and organizing, and again, if I'm sitting in the position, because I know what we do, we're covering these things, we're amplifying these things. But if I am sitting in these positions, if I am one of these generals that's a part of this plan, I'm looking at this whole landscape and I'm going, okay, how do people get information? So I'm going to have a listing of all of these syndicated black radio shows. Then I'm going to identify the top 30 urban markets, which really are black markets. And I'm going to say, in each one of those cities, is that morning show a syndicated show? Is it Ricky Smiley? Is it Steve Harvey? Or is it local? And then what about the afternoon drive show? Then I'm going to go look at, say, okay, what in those markets are there any talk shows? Then I'm going to look at, and then when I talk about syndicated, I'm including Sirius in that. But I'm not just including the shows on the Urban View. So then I'm over here, I'm looking at, okay, what are the black digital outlets? Then I'm looking at what are the black news and information podcast digital shows. Then I'm looking at what are the podcasts that does news and culture and not just fixated on entertainment and sports. Okay, so I'm sitting here looking at all. So now all of a sudden I've now created this matrix of a media ecosystem. Then I'm sitting here taking that and I'm then going, okay, who are we sending on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Why am I doing that? Because the opposition has Fox News, Newsmax, One America OAN. They've got Salem Radio, Sinclair, Nexstar, News Nation, their right-wing network. They've got the digital properties. So they got this entire ecosystem. Progressives and black people and Democrats, Reese, if we really, really want to be honest, you know how they're thinking? New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, MS Now, they're thinking ABC, NBC, CBS, the NPR, they are all important. And then we're going to go down, and then we're going to go down to the next level, and then here, that's where they actually have black media. On that fourth level, not that first tier level. And then what invariably happens, and Reese, you talked about this all the time, so when you go through social media, and then you begin to see what clips black people post. Black people were posting like crazy when Rachel Maddow did not a whole show, not half a show, but did a segment on the attack, on the Republicans' attack on black America. Folk was sitting here, I saw it, and in the segment, she actually interviewed an Asian lawyer from the ACLU. And I saw it, and matter of fact, 3 people hit me that night saying, Roland, look like Rachel following what you do. And I just sat there and I watched it, Reese, but I watched and I waited for the reaction. And folk, man, y'all see this? Rachel's talking about the GOP attack on black America. And I was like, yeah, we did a whole 2 hours tonight. And the next night and the next night. This is part of the problem here. That all of these black folks who are involved in organizing and mobilizing and stuff along those lines, the reality is too many of them, Reese, are fixated on white media and not driving the information to black-owned media first and black-targeted media second.
It's true. I mean, before I was ever on this show, before I ever had my own show, before I ever was on Sirius XM, I was screaming from the rooftops, black media, black media. So I'm not saying this because I'm in black media. I was saying this when I was making videos from my car, okay? So it's been a very long time of me singing this tune, but the reality is that you have a couple of things at play. Number one, even though black people are the tastemakers, we still are following behind whoever was on CNN at a time, on MSNBC at a time. Now that they've gone digital, now it's, oh, let's look at the digital stuff. Oh, black media is, now that's black media. The major networks people, even though black media has been doing, that's no shade because I go on Don's show and I go on other shows as well. But the reality is that there's still this hierarchy that people have placed this unwarranted, in my view, weight on the big networks, even though those networks don't really speak to our community. And to be honest, those networks don't move the needle in our community either. The people that are moving the needle are the people that speak to our issues every day, in depth, that bring on people that look like us to talk about our issues every day. Not topical, but every day we have that lens. And yet there's still people who haven't caught up to where the community is. Now, the online sphere, that's a different story. I don't know if we'll ever be the mainstream when we get our clips. I've made it to 500,000 followers across all the spectrums without hardly ever getting reposted. I don't get reposted on nothing. Most people don't even share my shit. Okay, nobody famous does. And yet I still managed to build this platform. But when you look at what we do in person, when we've done things in person, Clay and I have sold out our tours every single year. Book tours, in-person events. You, Roland, when you're a keynote speaker or whenever you do stuff, people follow. Black Voters Matter, when they do stuff, people follow. And so, and in class with Carr and with Dr. Carr and Karen Hunter. So there's all this evidence of the impact. There's all this evidence of the credibility, and yet there's not much investment that goes in the people who do have the credibility, the people who do the work, whether we get a check, whether somebody comes in our show or not, we're going to talk about it. And so that's where the missed opportunity is. And it's a missed opportunity for those politicians because our shows are going to continue to be here. Our audiences are going to continue to be here. When they win, whether they lose, we still here. Whether they win or lose, the show goes on for us. So when they wake up to it, when they wake up to the power of black media, the same way that Republicans woke up to the power of Charlie Kirk before he was anybody. He didn't even have a college degree. He didn't have nothing. They built a Charlie Kirk. They built all these people. They invested in them. when they wake up to not being so focused on who's a household name or who's famous enough, and they get away from now everything is about content creators, which you need a whole ecosystem. When they get away from that instant gratification of making a video and then, oh, let's look at the comments. Oh, okay, yeah, I got all this many likes and this and that. You don't get that satisfaction when you're doing a show, okay? A show of 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. You don't get that instant feedback, but that is important because that is how you build the credibility that allows you to come and say, this is the game plan. This is what we doing. All right, this is the person that we co-signing. Let's get behind them. This is where we're meeting to protest. This is who we're boycotting. You have to build that relationship with the community before you give people marching orders. And that is what is missing. It's all about instant gratification. It's all about getting the big marquee names. It's all about the people who have millions of followers. And it's not enough about actually investing in people who already have the credibility and investing the time with the audience of those people. Now, that's the only free political advice that I'm going to give people. But what I do know is that whether they come on our show or not, whether we get however many followers or not, we're going to continue to do the work because that's our charge and that's what our purpose is. And the proof is in the pudding of what we've been able to accomplish, even without the kind of money that the Republicans get, the kind of fame that others get, the kind of awards that other people get, the kind of accolades, the invites, the any of that. And that's no shade. Everybody who gets those deserves them. But even without that, we still going to do what we need to do.
And see, the reason we are, I'm laying this out, because I need people to understand, Greg, we're not fixated on attention. We're not fixated on me. No. We're trying to explain to people how they just did it. You just said it. Did nobody know who Charlie Kirk was? But that ecosystem elevated. That's what happened. And so when we're talking about this here, I was thinking back, we were in Montgomery, and I was just sitting, Greg, I'm over there and I'm looking at the riser, and I'm looking at how many media outlets were on the riser. And then I was just watching how they just began to get smaller and get smaller and get smaller. I think about when Bishop Barber, when they had their event, the Poor People's Campaign here in Washington, D.C. It was in June of, was it 24 or 25? I got the video of it. I'm going to pull it up. And I remember it was a PR firm that was hired to do some work. Let's just say, was it a white woman, Carol? The white woman with the was a white woman? It was a white woman who was a little perturbed because she felt that we were taking up too much space. So she came over and she was really upset. She felt that our footprint, Greg, was a little too large. We have these spaces, all the other media outlets. And I was like, first, we ain't moving. So let's just be real clear. We ain't moving. Now, mind you, it was a lot of space. What was hilarious is they didn't show up. Then it was real funny. There was a sister they sent a sister over. And I guess they thought the sister was going to somehow make a difference. So the sister came over, and what did she say, Carol? Oh, she had heard about Roland Martin. She said, well, I heard about Roland. Now I already know what that means. Oh, I heard how he can be difficult. See, no. See, I'm not difficult. I'm consistent. See, Greg, what I'm not going to allow white publicists or black publicists, white organizational leaders or black organizational leaders to minimize our space and you give all your attention to ABC, NBC, CBS. Like I said, they never showed up. That day, in fact, I remember I did a hit from when the march was over for Simone Sanders' weekend show on MSNBC, and they connected to our live view. I just want to show y'all, just so y'all can understand. People watching at home, they connected to ours because they didn't have a camera out there. No, go to the other shot. Go to the other shot. Go to the wide shot. They connected to our live view because they didn't have a camera there. I'm about to mess y'all up. Stay on it. Now, y'all know we streamed in Montgomery. We sent the feed. Carol, which paper was it? Was it the Washington Post, Carol? We sent the feed to 50 other platforms. Different people said, no. Just go back to the other shot. Stay on it. We sent the feed with it. Y'all, I need y'all to understand. These cost like 20 grand each. The rack unit is like $40,000. This is the new one. This is the LU 900. This is the LU 800. We got another one of these. This is the top of line. Every other network, they own these. We got 3 of them. Okay? The Washington Post hits us up. Hey, do y'all have a clean feed of? Do y'all have a clean? Oh, it was the New York Times. The New York Times said, do y'all have a clean feed of the march? Y'all need to pull up in the control room. Pull the march up. We were like, huh? So what they didn't want, y'all, the New York Times didn't want to pick up the stream that had all roads lead to the South, that had the Black Star Network logo, and that had our crawl. They didn't want to use that. So can we get a clean feed? No, New York Times. Because you motherfuckers didn't pay for this. The New York Times is a publicly traded company. They make millions upon millions of dollars. Y'all didn't send nobody. No, that's the wrong one. That's the one in Selma. That's the wrong one. Pull up the one from Montgomery. Y'all didn't send y'all camera to Montgomery. Y'all didn't send y'all crew to Montgomery. We had 14 people we paid for. A crew in Selma, a crew in Montgomery. No, they didn't want to run this. Because, see, if they ran that on their pages, it's going to say Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's going to say Black Star Network. You goddamn right it's going to say that. Because we paid for it. Y'all, the point I'm making here, Greg, that people need to understand. If you are hoping and praying that they show up to cover you, okay. Let's say the New York Times covered the march on that Saturday. What they cover on Monday? What they cover on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday? What was their coverage every day since? This is what I'm talking about when you're in a war. When you're in a war, you have to be understanding of the battle that you are in. And see, some of y'all, and we talk about information and what you're fighting. I didn't realize this till we did the headline the other day. This Democratic group decided to do some focus groups. And they went out, and we know that Terrence Woodbury, he's done some focus groups. We've done that. We don't know that Cornell Belcher done some focus group. Well, this was quite interesting. This particular group, this Democratic group, Greg, dropped this here. Their focus group said more black men are tuning out major media outlets. And then when you go through this here, it said black men who voted for former President Joe Biden in 2020 and then for Donald Trump have sour on the president, expressed concerns, blah, blah, blah. But the focus group conducted by the Democratic firm Navigator Research. And I'm going to show y'all in a minute, their leadership, Navigator Research, y'all need to hire some black people. No, go back, stay on it, stay on it. You go through the story, and the participants said, I go on YouTube, watch a lot of podcasters, Independent, Joe Rogan, Midas Touch. I watch everything. Somebody else said Joe Rogan. I don't believe half of the stuff that CNN puts out. Another participant explained that while he still watches MS Now and CNN to gain a broader perspective on what's happening around the world, he leans toward independent journalists like Roland Martin because he feels they're more likely to tell the truth with no constraints. Mainstream media sees more control now. The big news outlets see more control in what they can release to the public, the 55-year-old from Atlanta said. Their responses follow a Gallup poll. Here's all I'm saying, y'all. If we're in this war, Greg, the smart thing is like, no, we got to be driving information and experts every single day to our black sources, and we got to be, and then those folks who are coming on got to be telling their folks, yo, go watch so-and-so, go watch so-and-so, go watch so-and-so. That promo we got of your brother saying, black people bring your eyeballs home. This survey, they mentioned Joe Rogan a whole lot. So we got a whole bunch of black men who are watching and listening to Joe Rogan. So the problem is, Joe Rogan got 50 million whatever subscribers and all this sort of stuff. And so the problem is I'm having to fight. I got 1.93 million. We're trying to get to 2 million. So those black men, the black men in this Navigator Research survey, a focus group, they are being fed wrong information from Joe Rogan. They're being fed erroneous information from Joe Rogan, but he's the #1 podcast on YouTube, flip between #1 and #2 in Midas Touch, and I'm trying to sit there and counter that, and you can't do it all alone. So what I am arguing that our people got to understand is we've got to be elevating and amplifying, and we got to understand the algorithm. Because I used to always see, it was easy to retweet Reese or repost because it came up. But the algorithms, well, we're going to make sure he don't see her stuff as much. Then now you have to, now it's like, oh, damn, now I got to go there. See, people don't understand how this game works. This is a war of information. This is a battle we're in, Greg. And I really felt it yesterday, standing outside of Obama Presidential Center discussing this, being in Chicago where I lived 6 years, running the Chicago Defender, being on WVON radio, thinking about Ebony and Jet and all the other black papers in Chicago and black magazines, and understanding that, man, black folks don't get it, that we are witnessing before our very eyes a complete destruction and eradication of black media voices. And I'm like, y'all, if we got to hope and pray the New York Times and the Washington Post and MS Now show up and cover us, I mean, hell, MS Now won't even book me unless they have a group meeting to discuss it. Greg, our people better understand what's going on here. This is a war. And a lot of our trusted voices are purposely not being called for other reasons. Go ahead.
You're right, Roland. Of course, you're right. And I, for one, am not convinced, because there is no way to create a quantitative mapping that would be able to either prove or disprove what all of us, the four of us certainly, and everyone who has appeared here because of you on Black Star Network, there's really no way to confirm what we experience every day. I was in Tulsa last week. Karen and I went out there, had joined with DeMario, our brother DeMario Solomon Simmons, and his wife Mia for the Tulsa events around the 21 massacre and the 120th anniversary of Greenwood. And I can't count the number of people who, of course, send you well wishes, who say they watch consistently. That's not showing up in any poll. That's not showing up anywhere. I'm not at all convinced that all those people are listening to Joe Rogan, that black men are listening to Joe Rogan. I don't think that the research is there to prove it either way. But I know that everywhere we go, we encounter black folk who are tuned in, who rely on the Black Star Network. Now, what does that, of course, speak to? It speaks to credibility, it speaks to consistency, and it speaks to independent ownership. Let's be crystal clear. Ain't nobody watching the networks anymore. Barry Weiss is doing what the Ellisons and Trump put her there to do, which is take a jackhammer to any notion of credibility at CBS. When ABC settled that thing with Donald Trump 2 years ago almost, they put their credibility in the trash can. And now Brendan Carr, that bubblehead piece of work, is after Jimmy Kimmel, of course, as we know he would be. NBC maybe stands alone, but the fact is nobody's watching. As for MS Now, I watch occasionally Lawrence O'Donnell because I like his snark, and he's always they're doing that. And also I will watch occasionally others, but I don't watch Dr. Maddow because she's a little self-satisfied to me, and particularly when it comes to race, it's like it's a game. And I understand as a white woman why it is a game to you. So I don't get fed, and I don't really look at it. But I'm saying all that to say that the shift has already occurred. You were ahead of the curve. I laugh, as we talked about before. Every time I see Mehdi Hassan talk about Mehdi Hassan Unfiltered, I just start laughing because I know you were there before they got there. And so everybody who gets fired, everybody who leaves the networks, I don't care whether it's Keith Olbermann, who I will listen to occasionally. Ben Midas has created a whole network and has spawned off shows. For example, those two white women on I've Had It, all of it's there anyway. And you were there before the folks made that shift. Now, what does that mean in this context? I think the question that you're raising speaks to the deep roots. What does that mean? It means that while it might look like the influence may not be there, there's no way to gauge where the influence is or isn't until there are viral moments, sea changes, which elicit a mass response targeted at a specific issue. What you did in Montgomery is ground what is already there. All the institutions, all the people working, introducing people to people they hadn't heard speak before and organizations they didn't know exist before. Listen, Cliff, Latasha, April, everybody around Black Lives Matter, including those young organizers who were in Montgomery speaking at the state level, whether it be Tennessee, whether it be Alabama, it's very clear. If you had them all in a room and say, what is the single outlet that has advanced your work more than any other, they would say the Black Star Network. Cliff and Latasha say that all the time. Now, and DeMario, of course, was saying it in Tulsa this weekend when they were at the Greenwood Rising Gala. It's the independent black media that has allowed that story to get out. What are the implications of that? Because you have moved slowly, decisively, consistently, and poured every penny that folks have trusted you with back into the institution. Not only are you independent, you're impregnable to the vagaries of the algorithms, the vagaries of corporate masters and lords, the vagaries, all that goes aside. Why is that important at this moment? Because there will be a moment. Remember, as you said, you mentioned Jet and Ebony. Those pictures of Emmett Till were in Jet magazine, a publication that white people didn't know existed. 10 years later, that trigger, Rosa Parks said, hey man, that thing woke me up. The young people of SNCC is like, well, that picture, they didn't even know it existed, but they knew their whole country was transformed by a movement where the trusted deep roots of the black press, and of course, next year, 2027, I'm expecting Black Star Network, you're probably gonna launch a whole thing, 200th anniversary of Freedom Journal. The black press doesn't have to be visible to white people to have those roots that are so deep in the black community that when the shit hits the fan, people look for the credible voice. I'm saying all that as a prelude to this. While people are casting about for trusted voices, is it the Black Authority? Is it Joe Budden? God bless my friend and brother Martin Lamont Hill, who will go anywhere and talk to anybody, but you risk your credibility in moments And he's got a whole channel, Martin Lamar Hill channel. He's got, Night School, Karen and I, we got Narrative, Nubia, all of that. People are looking for credibility. There's one thing that no one can argue with when it comes to you. Yes, to the social media people and the butter biscuits and the blah, 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 and all that stuff. Your credibility is impregnable because behind the stories, behind the commentary, behind the analysis, behind the guests that you bring on, behind the being ignored by white spaces, there lies the consistency, the character, the commitment, the investment of resources, the sacrifice. And at the end of the day, that is going to be what wins the day in a war. When the thing hits the fan, people look to who they can trust. And they will tune in right here because they have been tuning in. I don't think there's a way to really gauge all that in a study of any kind.
So, folks, I have these. I have these books at home, and I have. I ain't realized I even bought extra copies. So these are in our studio, and I'll say this here to our interns this summer: y'all should be reading all of these this summer. But this is something people to understand. This book here won the Pulitzer Prize. It is called The Race Beat: The Press, the Civil Rights Struggle, and the Awakening of a Nation. Gene Roberts and Hank Klibanoff. Okay, this is the book right here. I want you to understand something. They write in this book. See, when we talk about the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Freedom Movement, and you watch these documentaries, you know what they always talking about? When the white press, when Newsweek, Time, and the New York Times, and when David Halberstam, when all of these writers, how they covered the Civil Rights Movement. But they say in this book that the reason they had so much access was because the black press was getting death threats. It was literally unsafe for black newspaper reporters and photographers to actually go and cover the movement because they were being beaten. I'm gonna pull it up in a second. That was a black man who was a reporter. He got beat in Arkansas, in Little Rock. He later died from those injuries he suffered. He kept reporting. So these white journalists got access because of black reporters. But the reality is, there was no civil rights movement without black media, without black-owned media. You did not have it without the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, without the Atlanta Daily World, without the Tri-State Defender. These people were literally, if you go watch Stanley Nelson's documentary, Soldiers Without Swords, that was the work they were putting in. Why am I saying all of this? It's because what we have to be doing is supporting those who are doing the work every day and not just at big events. Ethan McKaylee, his book is called The Defender: How the Legendary Black Newspaper Changed America. I'm so mad. He said he had reached out to me writing the book to interview me for the book. I'm like, man, who the hell would you call? I never even heard from him, but I push the book all the time. This right here, somebody who wrote for them, Ethel Payne. Her book is called Eye on the Struggle. Ethel Payne, the first lady of the black press. What I'm saying here, y'all, is this war that we are in, what we have to be doing is taking the information. So the segments that we do, the clips that we have, when Reese has it, when Clay is doing their thing, what we got to be doing is like, you know what? Cool. They've already done it. Got it. Clip it. Send. And now replicate. And it's going here. And you know what? All that energy y'all spend on Cheyenne Bryant, on Instagram and Threads, all the energy spent on Kevin Hart's roast, I want to see comparable attention. See, when we talk about war, this is what I'm talking about. We have to actually begin to reassess. And this is so vitally important, and I just want each panel to speak to this before I go to the break. What really has to be happening right now in this moment that we're in, pull them up, in this moment that we're in, there really has to be a massive reassessment of what matters to black people today. Again, let me be real clear. I love music. I see Reese's post. Reese has been going all around the country with these concerts. I love concerts. We all need the escape. Y'all know I play golf. We all need those things. But the real question that we have to be asking is this generation really, really prepared to fight this war? When I hear the phrase, "We are not our ancestors," you know what my response often is, Larry? You're right. You're not. And I'm not being positive. I'm not being affirming. What I am saying is, and this is the challenge that we have to, and here's the deal. Only the work, Larry, can answer the question. Only the work. The results come from the work. With this massive attack that we're seeing, when we see this extreme court, when we see all these things, the real question is, what is going to be the collective response of Black America to what we are witnessing? And that response only can happen based upon the work from people. And that means 1835, 3644. It means all of that. It means where you at, what you gonna do. Janae Nelson earlier today posted a series of tweets, and she said in her various posts, it was a number of things. There was 6 tweets that she said she posted. Give me 1 second. And she was talking about the Supreme Court. And she said, "We are in a state of poly-crisis in America. At its center is the Supreme Court of the United States. As a litigator and civil rights leader, I do not say this lightly or without evidence. See Trump versus United States, granting near absolute presidential immunity for starters." She then says, I need to show Janae how to do this. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, back-to-back. Janae, you ain't do this right. There we go. She did it right for 2 through 6. The Supreme Court's order on Allen versus Milligan, allowing an undeniably racist map designed to discriminate against Alabama's 27% black population to govern in the upcoming congressional elections after the state's primaries were concluded, no less, is not just about politics. Ratifying Alabama's gamesmanship defies the rule of law. It's intellectually dishonest. It shows a captured majority allowing the fig leaf of partisanship to mask the advancement of white supremacy. A court at the center of the political thicket it claims is non-justifiable. When the Supreme Court dismisses the authority of lower courts to make factual determinations about violations of law, every member of the legal profession and the public should be alarmed, from the ABA to corporate counsel to government lawyers. When the court writes 1 month ago in Louisiana versus Calais that proof of intentional discrimination is still a basis for liability under the Voting Rights Act, and then ignores voluminous evidence of the same, we should be outraged about the rank violation of principle and procedure. When the Supreme Court, I call extreme court, ceases even to pretend to be a form of objectivity, we must call for its immediate reform, and we must have a Congress that will do the job. And Larry, the reality is this. The only way any of that can happen is if we have a massive mobilization and organization and resistance at the ballot box. We cannot say the courts. We cannot say, well, what the politicians are going to do, because those people are elected. And as long as Republicans have supermajorities in southern states, because people are not voting, then we are going to have the same problem. So the question really now is, for this generation, what are you prepared to do? Larry, you first.
Roland, that's the question. And I've been, you just read that tweet, and I've been making the argument that people are studying democracy. You should be studying authoritarianism. and how people of the past have been able to take those governments down and reclaim what is rightfully theirs. But your point is a great one. And I talk to my son about this and a lot of other young brothers and sisters in terms of what are you prepared to do to reclaim that was rightfully yours and what the blood, sweat, and tears your ancestors put in the clay and dirt of this country. But we're not seeing the kind of response we need to. We've had some special elections and, primaries, et cetera. We're still seeing very small numbers of folks 18 and, 21 under, 30 and under who are going out to vote. So you can't complain about the 7.3%, unemployment rate in the Black community if you're not prepared to do something about the ballot box. There's a reason why, we're dealing with gerrymandering. It's a reason why the Supreme Court has go to the Voting Rights Act. This is because Black people have used the ballot box, as you highlighted, as a way to, among other areas, through the courts, et cetera. But voting is so of what you can do to counter a lot of these, moves to create an authoritarian government. And if the folks who are coming in a generation behind this don't register to vote, aren't actively involved in grassroots organizations and also legacy organizations of NAACP, et cetera, and encourage other people to vote, then things will continue to get worse. And then the Black unemployment rate will next time we know, will be 10-point-something%. This is a war against misinformation and disinformation. We have to understand that these ecosystems have created soldiers who are spreading ideology, some of them in barbershops in our Black and beauty salons in our communities. And we have to be prepared to counter that. But the young people have to be the ones to lead the fight to make sure that the next generation of young brothers and sisters can thrive and not simply live in this country.
It really boils down to, Reese, what are you prepared to do?
Woo child, I don't know about this crop that we got. That's why I be telling people vote, because we ain't got the guns, we ain't got the aim. Okay. And if you can't vote, I don't think you can't squabble up either. Okay. And then we don't even know how to do jury duty right, because how the fuck did Rick Chow get acquitted with 5 Blacks on the damn jury? Hello? So please get your ass out and vote. That's the least you can do. That's the least you can do. That seems to be the bare minimum that we could barely get people to do. And I remember rolling on your show, The State of the Union in 2024, when Biden was still spry and lucid. I talked about, before we were in a catastrophe like what we're in now, citizenship was on the ballot. Look at us now. Hello. I talked about how we need an information infrastructure. And what we haven't talked about right now yet is, you talked about it, you touched on a little bit with Joe Rogan, is how there is a heavy multi-million, I would even venture to say probably billion-dollar investment in getting the Black community disengaged, getting us disillusioned. It is not by accident. So I know I say get your ass out of vote. I know we talk about the voter numbers and all the things. There's voter suppression, yes, but there is a deliberate and relentless campaign to make Black people feel like the political process doesn't work. There were millions of Black voters who were marked as dissuasion. This was 2016. We're 10 years later, and the tactics have not stopped. And unfortunately, we haven't been given the resources to mount the defense or even go on damn offense to the extent that they've invested in suppressing us by making it feel like it's our idea to just tap out the process. And so we have to be woke, and somebody has to put some money. And I've been saying this all year. Where is the money for the Black organizations? And are those organizations going to invest in a broader set of people with credibility, of organizations with credibility, or are they going to keep it for themselves and throw themselves galas and all the other shit? Those are the things that we got to figure out, and we got to figure it out yesterday.
Yeah. It really is as simple as that, Greg. What are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to do?
It is. I think we have to we don't have to do anything. I think that really that's the point. We don't have to vote. We don't have to get guns. We can just do what we've been doing. Watch the game, try to get a job and maybe get a mortgage and maybe buy a car. But ultimately, the historical forces that we are facing are global. China is preparing for the next iteration. That's why Xi Jinping clowned the shit out of Donald Trump a couple of weeks ago with that Thucydides reference. Claudia Sheinbaum this week, a couple of days ago, said that Cuba has the right, like any sovereign nation, to import energy, to receive energy. Lula da Silva is accusing Trump and his bozos of interfering in the election cycle in Brazil. We see Colombia in a runoff now with some bozo that they've dug out of South Florida and the house that he owns there, trying to be the president. The world is moving on. Gold, a couple of days ago, passed Treasury bills here in the United States as the reserve currency, if you will, if you want to talk about it in terms of currency of import. What I'm saying is that as the world moves on, the historical forces are going to do what they do. The United States is in steep decline. And what we're seeing now, I think, in terms of credibility and how we're going to move, really what will be revealed when you ask, what are we prepared to do? We are prepared to survive. We may not be organized to the degree that we need to be organized, but I think that what emerges out of these moments is leaders, and leaders aren't self-appointed. Why is that important? I think it's very important. You know, another thing we were talking about over the weekend, I'm sitting in Tulsa, and there was an elder who was reminiscing about you and Tom Joyner and your regular news reports there. We have to understand that when you lay a foundation, it isn't laid immediately. It isn't laid by brain analysis in a moment. It isn't laid in a couple of tweets. It isn't even laid in quality work that people may not be aware of. The roots are laid in the engagement with the people. And I'm saying that specifically as it relates to media. And why is that important? I think that our people have a deep suspicion of this criminal enterprise we call United States of America, and we have since we've had it since we've been trafficked here. So that's not misplaced thinking. Democracy has always been a sham. It was a sham when you talk about the Athenians and the Spartans. It's never existed in Europe or anywhere else. So this illusion of democracy, I think, which has fed a small class of our people, that small middle class, the one that negotiated some room to operate during the civil rights movement, that hell has been negotiating some room to operate since we were trafficked. You can go back to the 18th century as far as that's concerned, whether it be Prince Hall in Boston or David Walker later on, or that group of black abolitionists, Frederick Douglass and William Whipper and them in the you can come all the way through the 1920s and 30s. We've always had a little group to negotiate, to try to figure out how to not only lead us, but also to carve out a little space for themselves to have a little breathing room. What we're seeing now in this current crisis is that those people are starting to talk a lot stronger, and the masses of our people who have always been clear that this whole thing is built on the rejection of black people are not listening to them, because there's also a deep class suspicion. Why? Let me bring all this home and make this very clear. When we hear you, Reese, on the weekends at Urban View, or when Lamont and I are on in the mornings, or Clay or Karen or whoever else in that space, Roland, when we hear you every day on the Black Star Network, 24 hours a day, and across those spaces, the people who you never left will trust you before even some clear analysis, whether it be Joy Reid, whether it be Native Land Podcast, whether it be the good sister Janae Nelson, because there's a class suspicion. Because if you knew that last year, the year before, 20 years ago, why weren't you talking about it then? And so now when you say black people say, ain't nothing changed in our condition since you weren't talking like this before. You were willing to give them a chance. We've always been clear about who they are. This is the moment, I think, as people start to, quote unquote, come home out of that small class, that the Black Star Network can say, as Suge Knight said famously at the Source Awards, come to death row. And come on now, and let's fight these people. And you can say it because they don't pay your bills. The people pay your bills. What are you going to do now is a question that must be aimed not only at the mass of our people who are not organized, who are trying to do living and dying, but who are crystal clear about what this thing is. It must also be aimed at that small class of people who, having been cast out of white proximity, are now grasping for a way to maintain the idea that they are leaders by sounding more and more like you've always sounded. And we got to make space and try to figure out how we want to deal with that, because I'm not at all convinced that if this thing gets pulled back from the brink even a little bit, that those very same people won't say, well, we dodged the bullet. Let's give them a chance. Let's try to work. Oh, no. This is where we are. It's time to be stronger, not weaker. We can't compromise now.
Folks, so when we come back, we're going to, if you want to see a perfect example of how right-wing folk just lie on black people and how they will go get somebody black to actually defend their lies? Yeah, wait till we show y'all what Laura Ingraham did. That's next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Back in a moment. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
So, you remember when we talked about Scott Bolden writing a piece in The Hill calling Donald Trump anti-black? Well, Laura Ingraham, she complained about the headline. She said it was defamation, he was wrong. And so the next night she decided to, and I responded by saying, hey, I dare you to have Scott or invite me and others on. No, she decided to reach out to resident support a Negro, Niger Ennis of CORE. Now, let's just be CORE. Let's just be straight. Today's CORE ain't the CORE of yesterday. Now, Niger's dad, Roy Ennis, later ran CORE, and I swear at the end of the day, there were only 2 members left. So I don't even know who Niger represents now. But I just wanted to play for y'all what was said. So listen to this.
The sharp contrast here, Ali Velshi, focus on America's, I guess, irredeemable sins if you don't have reparations, to this idea that in this country, anything's possible. Anything's possible if you play by the rules and you work hard and you have a positive attitude. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely, and I'm so pleased that you had Bob Woodson, rest in peace, on. He was a great hero, and he and people like my father, people like Ellen Keyes, Justice Thomas, so many others had an indomitable faith in our country, the American people, their fellow Americans, and the Constitution. Laura, people can disparage you and I as being, leaning to the right so they wouldn't believe our statistics. Well, if you don't believe us, go to the black liberal think tank, the Joint Center for Economic and Policy Research, that in 2024, and I want to get this right, so I'm going to read it literally from their study. This is the first lines of their study. Black Americans are experiencing the most positive economic condition in generations. Record low unemployment rates, record low poverty, rates with record high income levels, and new heights of wealth. That is from the Joint Center, which is a black liberal think tank. And, Laura, look, if you look across the line, not just economically, politically, let me just give you a little snapshot. You know Mississippi, and we know the racist past of Mississippi. It was the epicenter of political violence, of lynchings, of real voter suppression, not the phony voter suppression that they talk about today, but real voter suppression back in the 60s, 50s, and before. Well, today, Laura, this is going to shock you. You're going to be knocked off your seat. You know the state that has the most black elected officials in the country? It's a little place called Mississippi. And that's not to mention the number of mayors, and our friend Byron Donalds is about to be elected governor of our third largest or second largest state.
Yeah, it's where it's all happening.
Okay. Let me go ahead and stand up. Because what I need y'all to understand, that what you just heard was absolutely a bunch of straight-ass bullshit. First of all, Niger, if you're going to go on television and then you're going to decide to quote an organization, what you call a liberal left black organization, please by all means do us a favor and get the fucking name right. Okay? Let's just start there. Okay? It's called the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. That's the actual name. Y'all, if you want to go to the website is jointcenter.org. And Laura, I dare you to have its leader on the show to discuss that study that Niger decided to reference on your show, because in that clip right there, Niger actually said that in 2024, he cited those things. Who was president when the study came out? Who was vice president when he talked about low unemployment? Laura, the lowest black unemployment on record, that took place under Biden. What is the black unemployment today, Laura? Niger begins to cite black wealth. He's poverty. All of that were because those things happened due to the economic policies under Biden-Harris. Today, Diaper Don was asked the question about black unemployment, and this is what he said.
On jobs, tomorrow the jobs report will be released. While the unemployment rate has been steady at 4.3%, the black unemployment rate has been 7.3%. When you ran for president, you courted black voters and talked about what you described as black jobs. How do you describe why this disparity is happening? What can you do to close that?
Well, we're doing very well with the black jobs, African-American jobs. I saw some numbers that we're doing really well. But where we're really going to do well is when all these plants are open. You know, we're building many car plants. We're bringing cars back from Germany. We're bringing, we lost the car industry years ago. 54% of the industry went to Germany, Japan, Canada, Mexico. It's all coming back. It's amazing. And where your black worker is really going to do well is when those factories open. So I think they're going to be great. We've been doing very well. It's been a big focus for me. Yeah, please.
So nobody in the White House press corps said, bullshit. Everything you said is a lie. Black unemployment, more than 7%. How many black women and black men have lost their jobs since Donald Trump was sworn in? last year? From Economic Policy Institute, a snapshot of black employment. Black workers, particularly men, are experiencing lower employment compared with a year ago. Come on, go to the iPad. Look at this here. Black men's employment population ratio decreased by 1.7 points. Black women, showing the number. The rising black unemployment rate and big employment losses among black women made major news headlines in 2025. Goes on to lay out the whole deal. Look at this here. First quarter of 2026, black unemployment rate was 7.6%, 1.2% higher than in the first 3 months of the second Trump administration. We can go on and on and on. So, Niger, you sit there and you quote a joint center report in 2024, and your weak ass just skip all of 2025 and skip all of 2026, and oh my God, you then sit here and go, the state with the most black people, despite their history, they have the most black elected officials of any state in America. Yeah, fool, because of the black population in the state. And you sat there with your smug ass talking to a fucking imbecile who knows nothing about black people. And you could not say, oh, by the way, Mississippi has not elected a single black person statewide since the 1890 Constitutional Convention when they took away the right to vote. You could not say, Niger, that Mississippi, federal courts have ruled against them. They had to redraw lines in the state and the Supreme Court, and that only got overruled because of the extreme court decision in Louisiana versus Calais. You said nothing about Republicans in Mississippi trying to wipe out the congressional seat of Congressman Benny Thompson. But you and that Klansman sat there and y'all, oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, she's smiling. This is wonderful. Oh my God, it's amazing. So Niger, do me a favor. And I saw they had you listed as podcaster. I guess you stopped. I guess Core is just totally defunct now after your dad's death. If you just gonna go on and just lie and just don't even give people a snapshot of today, and then you want to quote the Joint Center and you can't even properly name them. But it's no surprise because Laura Ingraham has no guts, no courage, and she's afraid of a real conversation, a real debate. But that's who Fox News is. Laura Ingraham, scared. Sean Hand had been running from me for a long time. Republican Sophia Nelson personally hit him about he ain't come on TV show, he ain't come to my radio show. Will Cain, we know he's scared. Y'all, they don't want black people who are gonna come on there with real facts and real information because they like pushing lies and they love having black puppets doing a mime on the air. Greg, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Niger, this is an embarrassment and has been for some time. And I'm trying to remember, was it his father who was on stage with Al Sharpton? Was that Morton Downey Jr.?
Yep, Morton Downey Jr. show. That was his daddy, Roy Ennis.
Yeah, you know, this minstrel show has been going on for quite some time. You know, I'm reminded, as I'm sure you are as well, of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dissent in Shelby County versus Holder, where she said John Roberts saying that because of the progress black folk have made in terms of voting, that the Voting Rights Act is no longer necessary. It's like going outside in a rainstorm and saying, because I'm not getting wet because of my umbrella, I can now put the umbrella away. Nigel Ennis has been consistently stupid, and Laura Ingraham knows that. This really ties beautifully to what you were talking about a moment ago as it relates to the black press and black independent and black independently owned media in particular. Laura Ingraham is an afterthought. Her worldview is collapsing. It is as dry, as vapid, as emaciated, as shrunken as her literal physical form. And so when she sits there as the media troll that she is and invites a piece of a man, a very damaged black man, as Victoria Burke might call him, another consensual manservant, it is a distraction. It's necessary to talk about because there are some people who might occasionally wander across those kind of things. But I think finally it comes down to this. There are a lot of people talking out there. Everybody with a microphone and an ability to get on the internet is talking. What cuts through the noise is that clean glass of water, as Elijah Muhammad told Malcolm X, or as Al Freeman told Denzel Washington in Spike Lee's Malcolm X. There's no need to poison our minds with a Laura Ingraham or a Nigel Ennis. It's the equivalent of pouring ink in a glass of clear water. You can't drink it and you can't use it to write with. Laura Ingram's worldview is dying. We can watch her for entertainment, but I think beyond that, we just don't get distracted.
What we have to understand, Larry, is that they are purposely going to elevate liars, to then lie and not give factual information. So it's amazing. They just sat there and gloated about a report in 2024 that was a result of the policies of Biden-Harris and just totally ignored the last year and a half under this white supremacist, insurrectionist, lying, narcissistic, con man, and corrupt person occupying the Oval Office.
Well, when I watched that interview, back in the day, there was a movie called The Drop Squad, in which they snatched up folks who were anti-black in our community. He needs to be drop squad, as they said in the movie. That's first. Second of all, highlight a report under another administration that, and we know that you highlighted that April of a couple years ago was the lowest unemployment rate the Department of Labor have ever recorded. But also to talk about Mississippi, in which we could also, he forgot to mention the water infrastructure problem in Jackson, or the efforts by Mississippi legislators to control the judiciary there in that area. So Mississippi certainly wasn't a great example. We also have to have a conversation about what do we do with these kind of black folks. And he named some other, Alan Keyes and Clarence Thomas and others. We have to make sure not only how we deal with black folks like that who are out there putting out misinformation and upholding white supremacy, but how do we prevent another generation of individuals like this from espousing these kind of views that make it to these large platforms, some of which black folks are listening to? Because they're a danger to the community. And so my original point about people like that needing to be drop squad, because we can't allow this kind of misinformation to make it out because, and once again, as Reese, I think, highlighted earlier, black people have been targeted for years, particularly black men have been targeted when it comes to this kind of misinformation. But we're not going to be doing any more tap dancing in 2026. We need to put an end to that. And once again, folks like that who come on these platforms and then willingly give out all this nonsense information about, like everything is rosy for black folks now, when we're catching hell. Black folks under attack. We talked about the dismantling of the Voting Rights Act. We talked about the high unemployment rate. We talked about the attack on higher education, a lot of black professors throughout the United States. I can go on reproductive rights in terms of particularly how it impacts black women. I could go on and on. And as you said earlier, we're at war and we need soldiers, and we don't need ideologues to be out there spreading misinformation to the black community.
Rishi, let me be real clear. I don't have a problem if someone chooses to be a black conservative or black Republican. I don't. What I'm saying is, don't lie. Don't sit here and lie and paint a picture that isn't true.
Right. Well, for one, he's lying for the benefit of white people. Because black people, we know what the hell going on. Everybody black, I think, knows somebody who's been laid off, still ain't got a job. Everybody black is paying higher damn gas prices. Okay. The unemployment rate is 7.3%, much higher. Our money ain't going no damn where with inflation. And so you can't gaslight black people about our progress or lack thereof and the reversion that many of us have experienced under the Trump administration directly because of his policies. Now, you got some whites that want to hear black people go along with the propaganda. But even the whites know good and damn well that none of this that Trump is doing and the Republicans are doing is intended to make black people better off. Project 2025 is about attacking black citizenship, black humanity, and black economic advancement. They've been very, very clear about that. But they just want us to play dumb. And that's what that man is there for. They really, and behind his back, they're like, yeah, we got him. Look at us. You want to sit up there and talk about how if you work hard and you play by the rules, you can get somewhere in life. When we're seeing people who don't work fucking hard, who are not qualified, and don't play by the goddamn rules, get everything because they're white. Now, when we can do that, then we'll see that we're equal. When we can be fucked up, unqualified, degenerate criminals and still get ahead and become billionaires, then I'll say, America, we've made it. But as long as we have to be 10 times better and we still last hired, first fired, still have medical disparities due to race, not even due to socioeconomic class, as long as our communities are polluted, environmental justice is out the window now with this administration. As long as we have all these conditions that we can feel and we can see and that are documented, then you can't tell us nothing about no goddamn progress in this country.
Yeah, talk about Jason Galanis, who stole $60 million from indigenous tribes, among other crimes. Trump commuted his sentence and said, "Oh, you can keep the $80 million of stolen funds." Yeah, let's see Niger and Laura talk about that. All right, y'all, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
Police say a black woman is lucky to be alive after being kidnapped by a white man who falsely posed as a law enforcement officer. Her nightmare ended when a truck driver named Anthony Moore saw a woman run into traffic, begging and pleading for help around 7 a.m. on Friday. A 39-year-old man, Jonathan Willard, approached Moore's truck claiming to be a police officer. The unidentified woman jumped into Moore's truck and told him that Willard had handcuffed and placed her in the backseat of his car. She said that when Willard later stopped to grab something from his truck, she managed to escape his vehicle and get away. Moore and another driver who stopped to help then called police. Willard was later arrested and charged with impersonating a law enforcement officer and kidnapping. Well, a city in California has become the first in the nation to ban data centers through a public vote. Preliminary election results from Monterey Park indicate that over 86% of voters supported Measure in D.C., which prohibits data centers from operating within the city limits. The vote can only be reversed by another ballot measure, making it the most permanent ban on data centers in any jurisdiction. Research suggests that the proposed facility would have been located less than 500 feet from the nearest home and would have consumed 3 times the electricity used by the entire city of 60,000 residents. SGV Progressive Action collaborated with local groups, including the data center Monterey Park, to garner support for this measure. The organization is now focusing on preventing data center proposals in other cities throughout California. And a new analysis shows millions of Americans could face significant Social Security benefit cuts if the program's trust fund is depleted and Congress fails to act in the next few years. The millions of Americans who rely on Social Security could see their monthly benefit check slashed by an average of about $500 if the program's retirement trust fund becomes insolvent. This is a scenario currently projected for the end of 2032. The reduction would amount to a 24% cut in the typical benefit payment, according to a new analysis from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a fiscal policy think tank. According to the National Committee Preserve Social Security Medicare, 35% of Black elderly married couples and about 58% of unmarried elderly persons rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. Social Security's trust fund helps cover the gap between the program's income and benefit obligations, which have outpaced revenue as the baby boom generation retires and the number of beneficiaries grows. Once the fund is depleted, benefits would be automatically reduced unless Congress acts to shore up the program's finances. Well, even though President Trump has withdrawn the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund, his Justice Department may be exploring other legal avenues to compensate allies of the president who allege that the government targeted them for political reasons. In a now deleted social media post, Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodard responded to a suggestion from South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham by stating, "We're on it." Graham had proposed that the government use existing laws to compensate individuals who claim to have been harmed. Several Trump supporters, including many who face prosecution in connection with the January 6 attack, are suing the government. The fund, established as part of an agreement for President Trump to drop a lawsuit against his own government, faced widespread criticism since its announcement on May 18th. It died because Republican lawmakers threatened to block an unrelated immigration enforcement bill unless the administration retracted the funds. And an award-winning Dallas principal who lost her job after reprimanding her students for poor grades is now leading another high school in the same district. Chandra Hooper Barnett was removed as principal at Dallas Woodrow Wilson High School last fall after she held a meeting with the school's 130 Black students to discuss her disappointment with their collective academic performance. Hooper Barnett, who is Black herself, said that she never intended any harm or offense. Now she's leading Lincoln High School, a magnet school in southern Dallas. Well, the Google search engine looks a little different today with an image celebrating Black hair. 17-year-old Black teen Kamira Johnson from Seattle is the winner of the annual Doodle for Google competition, which allows K-12 students to express their creativity through art. Now, her design of 3 Black girls with braids and curls spelling out Google earned her a $55,000 scholarship, along with an opportunity to have her art displayed on the Google search engine homepage. In the fall, she'll plan to attend New York University and hopes to run her own art gallery in the future.
Folks, be sure to follow Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, on the Breakdown Brittany Noble, right here on the Black Star Network. Again, every day, noon Eastern. All right, quick break. We come back. Shop BlackStarNetwork.com. Marketplace segment. Folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
Okay, folks, if you go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, we have, of course, a variety of products from all types of different companies. We created this marketplace as a way to be able to celebrate black-owned businesses, but also provide them an opportunity to showcase their products and for you to be able to buy them. Plus, when you support them, you also are supporting us as well. So let's talk about today's segment, and that is every day, many black people struggle to manage their textured hair. Now, listen, everyone, it's not as easy for some people, but for a lot of people, Hayama Beauty is just what you need. It's a hair care line designed for black, brown, multiracial, and multi-ethnic families. Founded by Allison Shimamoto, the brand's mission is to make sure textured hair care is easy, healthy, and accessible for the whole family, okay? From their organic hair growth oil to their deep conditioner and leave-in treatment, Hayama Beauty uses 100% natural and organic ingredients to nourish the scalp and strengthen strands. Allison joins us right now from Philadelphia. Allison, glad to have you here. So, all right, first of all, did I pronounce this correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Hayama Beauty.
Hayama. Okay, so let's go through this here. So we've got the different products. So where did this originate from? Did you have an issue finding stuff for you and your family, and you were like, man, let me just make my own stuff?
Literally that, Roland. I went natural in 2011. I had grown out my relaxed and textured hair. And at that time, there weren't as many options for natural and organic products that would work for my hair texture. So I started making products at home, giving them as gifts for my friends and family. And after I finished business school, I had a professor say to me, well, why don't you pursue this full time? And so year after year, very slowly, I started to work on Hayama full time. And now that I have a family, my kids are multiracial, multi-ethnic, and you can imagine how many different curl textures I have under one roof. And finding products that worked for all of our curl patterns was challenging as well. So I started to expand Hayama's offerings to make sure that we are inclusively formulating and that we can use products from your baby's skin, for cradle cap, as well as my hair texture when I'm doing my wash day.
So, so this is for the whole family?
Is for the whole family. So we have treatments, for example, for hair loss, hair thinning, menopausal hair loss, and thinning as well. And we also have creams like what you can see right here. This is our Shine and Moisture Mask made from organic acai and aloe that we get from Brazil, the Amazon rainforest. And it's really hydrating, really nourishing. And yeah, it's been a really wonderful journey so far.
Okay, let's go through the products here. Let's see. We got the Leona, the rejuvenating scalp stimulator for curly hair. So why is it called the Leona?
It's named after my great-great-grandmother. So I like to pay homage to my ancestors. Same thing with the name Hayama. It comes from a tributary in Guyana, which is where my ancestors are from. So I happen to have a Leona right here. And I'll show you how it works and what it does. The Leona is the first red light therapy electric scalp stimulator for curly hair. When I was going through postpartum shedding and my hair started falling out, it's a pretty traumatic experience. And when I was looking for options that worked for my curls, I really wasn't finding anything. There's things on the markets that are like a brush, for example, and I'm not going to be brushing out this twist out. It took long enough to do it. So that's where the idea for the Leona came from. Red light is great because it helps to keep the hair in the anagen phase longer. That is the growth phase of the hair's cycle. It also helps to thicken the strands of hair on your head. That comes from the blue light that we have as well. And the fenugreek seed oil, which is our Grow and Strengthen elixir right here, that goes in too. And so you get a 4-factor hair growth benefit. Additionally, it vibrates. So as the oil, I don't know if you can you see this, Roland?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, cool. So the oil comes out really slowly through these tines, and it's a really nice experience. It has microcurrent vibrations. And we previewed it this weekend at the Hue Beauty Affair, and it was really fun to experience that with customers there.
All right, so then we also have the Soothe and Calm Serum, the Grow and Strengthen Elixir. And then we also have here the Everything Cream, face, body, and hair. So lavender, you can just use it for everything.
Yes, you can use it for everything. You can put on your hands, you can put it in your hair. That's what I have in my twist out right now to style my hair. I have some right here. So it's made from kupuasu butter. Kupuasu is a really nice fruit that grows in the Amazon rainforest. It's really hydrating without being greasy. So a little bit goes a long way with this cream. This won a Refinery 29 Best of Beauty Award. It took, honestly, Roland, took 5 years to get this right, but you can see it's not greasy. It has a little bit of beeswax to hold that moisture in. One of my favorites for sure. It comes in lavender and it comes in unscented as well. So this is great for using on your babies as well. So you can use it all the way from infancy to toddler to your own self.
All right. We're gonna. Reese had to go, so I was gonna go to her first, but I'm gonna go to our preeminent hair expert, Larry.
Yes, I'm absolutely an expert. So I have first of all, shout out from being in a great city of Philadelphia. Great people there. Coincidentally, I'm from Philadelphia also. But so congrats, representing the city. You mentioned your Guyanese heritage, and I want you to talk a little bit about that in terms of how that ancestry has impacted the products. You referred to the Amazon a few times in this conversation, how that lineage has impacted the products you've created today.
Yeah, great question. So when I think about Guyana, I think about the richness of the resources that come from that region. So a majority of the country is made up of the Amazon rainforest, which is one of the most important structures on the planet Earth. And conservation efforts are important to us too. So when we get our kupuasu, right now we're sourcing from Brazil. Same with our acai that is in the Shine and Moisture mask, because the infrastructure doesn't quite exist in the region just yet to get those botanicals. So my dream and the goal is to eventually source directly from Guyana. So I'm choosing botanicals that are also superfoods, really rich in nourishment from that region. And I think about, too, how we can give back to the environment. So the kupuasu butter, for example, comes from a small women-owned company. She works with local farmers in the area who go and harvest the kupuasu wild. They set their prices, and she gives them that price no matter what they set. So if two families or two groups set a different price, that's what they get paid. So fair trade and sourcing and being able to go really back to where the botanicals grow is very, very important.
Greg?
Thank you, Roland. And thank you, sis. This is wonderful. I'm an adopted Philadelphian. I worked for the school district of Philadelphia when Bach was still a high school. So are you still in the Bach building?
I am, yes. Our lab is located in the Bach building.
Yes, as we used to say back in the day in Philly, go to Bach and it'll be okay. I want to ask you a question about your kind of revelation. It's fascinating. It seems that you seem to know a whole lot about the science stuff. I know you worked in pharma for a long time. I read one of the interviews that said that you were in marketing, but and then I love how you say you were fed up with the fake. Could you talk to us a little about your origin story in terms of your hair journey and how you just decided to go right back to natural? I think was it 2011? And you said it was just the Everything Cream and the fenugreek growth elixir that did the job for you?
Yeah, so I had started growing out my natural hair back in the 2011s. And even though through the years, there were still not as many advancements, and even today I would say, as I'd like to see in clean and organic, safe hair care options. So I even used a mainstream beauty curly brand, and my hair started to fall out again. And that was, in the last 2 or 3 years. So I know that I'm on the right path, and my passion for the science and understanding about the hair and technology comes from just wanting to have a better sense of what's out there and what's out on our shelves, and also making sure that I'm spreading the word of around awareness for Black women in particular and our health. And I think about too, right, like some of the challenges and studies that have come out about relaxers and some of the even products that are available on our shelves in terms of what we eat too. So I just want to spread awareness in that way. And when I'm formulating products that require us to work with cosmetic chemists, that's what we do. I'm not out here, whipping things up in my kitchen, even though that's where I did start. I've thankfully outgrown my house, but I will say, right, when we need to bring in scientists, we do, but we also push the limits in terms of what they can do with raw botanicals. So we're very choosy about what we pick because of the health, but also raw and natural ingredients, they just perform better for our hair generally.
All right, then. Well, folks, listen, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com to check out the products. Hope y'all can check them out. Again, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Allison has laid it out. You see all the products. Allison, how many different products are on the website?
We have 5 different products. I think the one that I would say is my favorite is got to be the Leona. It's great for hair growth, postpartum shedding, menopausal hair loss. Generally, that's the one. Yes, we have a wonderful bundle and duo.
Can Leona help Larry?
I think it depends on what kind of hair loss.
Now you said
Larry
you said
good. I don't need any. I'm good. I appreciate it though.
It's working for you, Larry. It's working for you.
But you said thinning hair. So if you have thinning hair, does that work for it as well? The Leona.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I do have my. Let me see. If you can see my before. These are before and after results from thinning and hair loss. So it does depend. We always say to folks, if you try the products, certainly give it like it's justice. So you're going to want to use it 2 to 3 times per week and with consistent use and a healthy hair care regimen.
Okay. All right. Folks, Hayama, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Y'all can check the products out. And, of course, all the products you see here in our studio are all Black-owned products. And so Allison's products will be joining our packed table. I'm going to have to add some space to it. So go to shopblackstarnetwork.com right now, shopblackstarnetwork.com. Peruse the products. And, again, when you support Allison's company, you're also supporting this one as well. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. It's an honor. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Appreciate it as well. Folks, that is it for us. And let me thank Reese, let me thank Larry, let me thank Greg for being on today's show. I certainly appreciate all 3 of y'all. Thank you so very much. Folks, tomorrow, lots we talk about. An appeals court in Colorado has overturned the conviction of those 2 paramedics in the death of that young Black man there in Colorado. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about this UFC fighter. Let's just say he ain't really down with this fight on the White House lawn. He's like, yo, if y'all want to do it, that's fine. But he said government shouldn't be doing this sort of stuff. So we're going to show you that as well. So lots to break down tomorrow. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Brina Funk fan club. If you want to contribute via Cash App, Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Use Stripe for that. Also for credit cards, checks and money order, and make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 -0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland and Roland Martin Unfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Samsung Smart TV. If you want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag, just go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Hats, T-shirts, mugs, all that good stuff. Again, for all the different Black-owned products, we got more than 50 companies on our shopblackstarnetwork.com marketplace. Go to there as well. Folks, follow me on the fan base. Download the app. Follow me at Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to support the shows that we have on the Black Star Network Daily Show. The Breakdown Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, on the Black Star Network every Tuesday. A Balanced Living with Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood, Balanced Life, Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood Martin. Streams every Tuesday. The Other Side of Change with Bria Baker and Shamira Burley. That streams every single Wednesday. On Thursday, Second Opinion with Dr. Ebony Hilton, right here on the Black Star Network. And every Friday, The Black Table with Greg Carr, as well as Roland's Book Club. We got any new ones coming up, Greg?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Got an email out there now. We're confirming the taping early next week. So next week should be a brand new Black tape.
All right, looking forward to it. So again, y'all, the Black Table, we stream every Friday on the Black Star Network as well as Roland's Book Club. Y'all, that's it. I will see y'all tomorrow. Yes, I'm representing my Jack Yates High School in H-Town. This year's our 100th anniversary. So represent JY. All right, y'all, I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!